Hey, what's up? It's Jared with State of Tech, and today I wanted to talk about my two favorite phones from 2018. So 2018 is coming to a close. Hopefully I get this video up before 2019 starts, but I wanted to talk about my two favorite phones from 2018 because there were a lot of great phones that came out in 2018, and I owned most of them, as I typically do go and buy a lot of the phones throughout the year so that I could produce content so I can help all of you understand a little bit more about the phones, share my thoughts and opinions, and also just better understand the technology myself, because that's my kind of my goal or my concept for State of Tech, is so that we can all better understand the technology that we use that is in the mobile form, like smartphones, tablets, laptops, stuff like that. So let's jump right into it. What I have in front of me is two different phones, and I encourage you to guess which ones they are. Of course, this one is the iPhone XS Max or 10X Max or whatever. Of course, everybody has a different opinion when it comes to what it's called, but this essentially is the flagship from Apple in 2018. And then, of course, this is the Google Pixel XL3, and these are the two phones that I have chosen for my favorites for 2018. Now, before I dive into those reasons, of course, the Note 9 is a fantastic phone. I had that phone. I absolutely did love it. I like the pen on it. The phone itself, of course, is very Samsung. Not a whole lot different than the S9 Plus, except for the fact that the body's a little different shape and it has a pen. But Samsung really has kind of, up to this year at least, has kind of made their products very similar. And so whether you go with an S9, S9 Plus, or a Note 9, you're kind of getting the same experience across the board, minus a few little things here or there. They're great phones. The cameras on them are great. The battery life on those phones are great. They still have headphone jacks up to this point. So, I mean, there's some benefits to the Samsung phones. But one of the things that I really like is just being on the bleeding edge when it comes to software versions. And the fact that Samsung phones don't get software updates that often, except for a few security patches. And then it's 6 months later, typically after the phone has been released, when they will upgrade the software to the next version of Android. And most people with Samsung phones don't even pay attention to that. They're like, well, I have the S9 or I have this. They don't know what version of Android they have, and that's fine. But for me, I like to have the new features. I like to play with the new features. And if I am on a phone, even though it's a new phone, but it doesn't have these features, I get a little frustrated, and I feel, I don't know if it's, FOMO, fear of missing out, or whatever it is. I just want to be able to play with those new features. And Google with the Pixel XL3 really there's some limitations, but they really hit it out of the park this year with this phone. And full disclosure, I am actually Team Pixel. Google actually sent me this phone, but prior to being sent this phone, I had already bought my own Pixel 3 XL. I had my own Pixel 3 XL for, like a month, a little over a month before the marketing agency behind Team Pixel reached out to me and said, hey, we want you to have a phone, which is fantastic because this is the first phone that I've ever been given without really any big expectations. There was no expectations of reviewing it. There was no expectations of doing anything other than taking pictures and using the hashtag Team Pixel. So I really think that I got given this phone more for my background in photography than I did out of anything else. But with that said, I just wanted to be fully transparent to all of you that the phone that I do have in my hand was given to me, even though my Pixel 3 XL, the black one that I had prior to this, I had purchased, which I would have still had anyways. If I hadn't been given this phone, it wouldn't have mattered. I still would have had that other phone. So the cases that I have these phones in, I have this in the Pelican. This Pelican case is one of my favorite cases. They make it for a lot of different phones. I don't have it on my iPhone right now, but This Pelican case is fantastic. I'm going to link to it down below for both the Pixel and the iPhone. This Pelican case, it just provides a ton of protection. And for a person, I don't drop my phone that much, but I feel like if I did, my phone would instantly be garbage because that's just the nature of how things go whenever I make a mistake. I drop something or something falls or whatever. It's usually big. It usually breaks completely, and the damage is usually extensive. So with a Pelican case on there, I know that I don't have to worry. It gives the phone a lot of heft. I mean, not that it makes the phone much heavier. It does make the phone a bit bigger because it's a thicker case, but the protection around the phone is just insane. And all of us Team Pixel people got pink phones, or not pink phones, but they're pink. It's not the black phone, it's not the white phone, it's the not pink one. So I needed to put a case on it because I don't know, I'm not gonna. You can't really tell that it's pink because it's not pink, but in the right light, it definitely looks pink. So let's jump over to the case that I have on the iPhone X or iPhone XS Max. This is, of course, the spec grip case, which they've been making for ages. I had one of these cases almost in the exact same design and style on, I think, my iPhone 3G or so. I mean, they've been making this case forever, but it's because it's a great case. It actually is super protective, and it's pretty slim. It's not as slim as some of the other slim cases out there, but it is a very protective case, and it has a lot of top edge protection too, a lot of glass protection. For those of you that don't want to put a screen protector on your phone like me, there's a lot of lip here to help. So if your phone does go face down, you're not going to have to worry about it. And the Pelican has that too. It has a lot of kind of lip here. So when if your phone goes face down, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay, I want to talk about some of the things that I think make these phones great. This isn't a comparison between the two phones. It isn't me saying, like, which one should you choose? Because really that's a topic for another conversation, and I have talked about that a little bit in the past. But of course, with the iPhone, we'll start with the iPhone because I think the Pixel, there's a lot more to compare against and a lot more reasons to choose this phone because there are so many of these phones or Android phones out there. With the iPhone, it really comes down to size. And of course, there are a few different iPhones right now, but I don't know. So let's just talk about this. The reason that I chose the bigger phone is because I knew I was going to use this with my drones, and I didn't want to use a tablet. And I also was thinking at the time that I wasn't going to mess with the next version of the iPad. And so eventually I wouldn't have an iPad. So I wanted a little bit bigger of a screen. However, the size of this phone is just big enough that it makes it kind of a pain in the butt to reach all the way to the top of it. Like if I'm holding the phone and trying to reach to the top, it is really challenging. And yes, there's the swipe gesture to get things to go down lower, but just with all the other swipe gestures that the phone has now, it actually is really kind of a pain in the butt to activate that swipe gesture. And so I'll end up swiping like, 3 or 4 times at least. And then, of course, once I get that, I can get it to happen every single time. But you really have to be focused and looking at your phone to make that swipe gesture happen, whereas, you can't multitask too well. I'm always worrying about dropping my phone. It's just, maybe I should have gone with a little bit smaller of a phone, not the Max. But I do like having the larger screen real estate for consuming content and stuff like that. The camera on this phone is fantastic, of course. I did buy my wife the iPhone XR or XR, and that phone's pretty fantastic too, and it's substantially cheaper than this phone. And I've wanted to do a comparison between those phones. I just haven't had the time. I've had just a crazy December, and that's meant not really putting out too much content. And even November was pretty crazy too. But with that said, the iPhone XR or the iPhone XS Max, they're all fantastic phones with great cameras, great performance. I will say though, when I'm playing games on this phone, I like having the little bit bigger of a phone to hold on to. It has a ton of power. My kids are super into Fortnite, and I'll play Fortnite with them sometimes, and this phone just choose through that game no problem, especially since the recent update getting 60 frames per second has just made playing Fortnite on the iPhone much better, and actually a pretty enjoyable experience. So I really like this iPhone, and I've had a hard time making any other phone my daily driver just because of the Apple ecosystem, which I know, some people are all about and some people are all against. But right now I have an iPad that I use a lot because of photo editing and podcast editing. I have my iPhone, which of course talks well or works well with the iPad. And then because I wanted to get back into doing some video editing in Final Cut Pro X, I have a MacBook Pro. And just if you have all three of those, there is no better experience. I can respond to my text messages on my laptop, on my tablet, on my phone. I can do things much faster and more effective when I have all three of those. Now that does mean that you need to have all three of those if you're going to use those three different platforms. If you're on Android and you have an Android phone and you have an Android tablet and you have a Windows PC or a Chromebook, the compatibility of those devices are not as good as what Apple has built up, even though there are things that are happening there, apps that you can use to kind of fill in the gaps. It's still not a perfect process. It's still kind of a clunky process. So anyways, let's talk about the Pixel 3 XL. Man, if I wasn't kind of locked in once again to the Apple ecosystem, I would be on this phone because just the Google Assistant experience is just always so much better. I love being able to squeeze to activate it because that's just one less thing that I have to say out loud to my phone, which I still find to be awkward. I absolutely love the camera on this phone. I think that the jump from the Pixel 1 to the Pixel 2, the quality of the camera was massive. So much improvement in that jump. The jump from Pixel 2 to Pixel 3 is a bit less, but still pretty substantial. The night photo capability here that you can get by, of course, you have to have the most recent version of the software. But if you go into night sight, this camera can take some pretty fantastic photos in lower light situations. I've shown you a couple examples on the screen. I absolutely love having that feature. Portrait mode is still really good. The phone does a good job. Apple's caught up as far as those things go with portrait mode, even though Apple's using the dual lens, whereas the Pixel's using the one camera. Apple has caught up in that area of edge detection and all of that stuff. So, but here I am comparing apples to Androids again, which I said I wasn't going to do. But anyways, this phone just, I think it surpasses some of the other Android phones because of the simplicity of stock Android. Android is getting better and more energy efficient, and it's just getting to be a better experience as a standalone operating system. It used to be the other Android, the phone manufacturers making Android phones added to Android to fill in the gaps, to make their phone better because Android didn't have everything that it needed. But Android these days has so many good things, and if you use Google products, Google's services, then the phone is just going to integrate so well into those. The one thing that I do feel is a little janky still, and most people have said this, is the gestures are just not as fluid as the gestures on the iPhone. But, that's the first iteration here of using gestures on an Android phone, and Google had to make this work on the potential of other phone manufacturers doing gestures as well. So, very interesting. I actually did switch over to Google Fi for my provider on this phone. That's the first time that I've switched providers in ages. I still have AT&T on my iPhone, but I wanted to play with Google Fi, and I'm definitely going to do a video about that. If you're interested in Google Fi, I have a link for you down below. I think it's a referral link, but it gives you $20 off your bill or something like that if you're interested in checking out Google Fi. So far, I absolutely love it on the Android phone. It doesn't have all the features yet if you use Google Fi on an iPhone. But here's the one thing. If you have a phone and you have a tablet, instead of paying for a phone plan and then having to add that tablet on and get charged more, you can get a data-only SIM that uses your same plan. I'm going to talk more about this in a video because this kind of blew me away, and it's going to save me a bunch of money every month. You can get your main service for your phone and get a data-only SIM to put in your tablet or your other device that you just want to make data only, and you're not having to pay an extra $10 or $15 or $20 for that device. You're simply just using the data that came with the one plan for your phone. So fantastic. I'm going to talk more about that in another video. So of course, there are other good things about this phone. I was hesitant because it has probably some of the least amount of RAM memory out of most of the phones that came out, especially flagship phones in 2018. But so far, I haven't noticed really much of a difference. Even when playing games like Fortnite, some of the heavier games on this phone, of course, it isn't as fluid of an experience as the iPhone, because I think for the Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, and a lot of these other game creators, it's so much easier to code an app and optimize it for one operating system than to have to optimize it for so many different versions of Android, so many different versions of phones and screen sizes and resolutions and all that stuff. So, but the app does perform, Fortnite does perform well on this phone. A lot of other games do too. They're just not as fluid. A lot of them are with the iPhone. Of course, the experimental things that Google is doing with this phone are great, such as the AR camera and stuff like that. So much fun. My kids and I have a blast putting stormtroopers and other random characters around in the room and just interacting with them. It's a lot of fun. So I definitely enjoy this phone. I think that it is priced right as a flagship. A lot of these flagship phones are getting very expensive these days, and the Pixel isn't cheap, but it's definitely not as expensive as some of these other flagships. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Even though I kept going iPhone, Android, this video wasn't about that. What was your favorite Android phone and your favorite iPhone of 2018, or just your favorite two phones in general? I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comment section. So make sure to share that. I'll be down there hanging out, responding. And until next time, thanks for checking out this video. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell next to it to be notified when we put out new videos. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And we'll see you back here next time in State of Tech.